Morning. Good morning to anyone who's in the morning or good afternoon, good evening. I know we're worldwide. I am Danette Edwards, the founder of Corona Daze Professional Development Group, and I am so honored this morning or this afternoon today to have with me Monica Morales, who's a water engineer with Jacobs in Los Angeles, California, and she has a very motivating and inspiring story. She also is here to talk to us about Present Your Best Self. I am very, very excited to hear from her today, and I'm going to turn it over to her immediately and mute myself. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. First off, I want to thank all of you at Corona Daze Professional Development for inviting me to present to you all, and especially Danette for reaching out via LinkedIn. Really enjoyed learning more about you as well as this group, and I think it's a great organization that you all put together despite these trying times and coronavirus and social distancing. So today I'm going to be presenting on how to present your best self. How to kind of make something out of nothing in terms of, joining in on professional social media, and how to kind of convey the message you want to the public at large. So I kind of want to start with my beginnings and more on about me and how I got started. So I've always been really determined and ambitious in that my parents did not have the ability to go to college. They did not have that privilege to be able to choose the major and the career that they were passionate about. So this was something that I grew up with as a goal since I was 5 years old, where every birthday wish was, I want to go to college. So I knew I wanted to take advantage of schooling and academics, especially since my father could only really gain a middle school education since he had 9 other brothers and sisters, being born and raised in Mexico, where he had to help provide for his very poor family. And my mother, who kind of went in and out of the foster care systems, wasn't able to complete her high school, and then went back and was able to get her high school degree. So because of them and what they set in me in terms of morals and goals that I should aspire to, a big one was school, doing well in school and taking advantage of the free, elementary, middle, and high schooling that we do have here in the United States, whereas some places in Mexico, you have to pay for the high school diploma in that education. So I always tried to get the best grades that I could, and really tried to learn as much as I could in and out of school. I was a 3-sport athlete. I participated in many different clubs, and was just all about doing everything that I could, especially if it was free and available to me. I grew up within a low-income and Mexican immigrant family. When I was born, we were in a 2-bedroom apartment, and there was about 12 people living in that 2-bedroom apartment, where I believe my parents slept on a cot in the kitchen. And then when I was 5, they all put their money together, where my father then bought a house in Reno, Nevada, under $100,000, but large enough to include everybody. And then slowly people were able to get on their feet and move out and build their own homes. And finally, it was my mother, my dad, my grandmother, and me in high school, where, that was kind of like our household. And coming from that 10+ person family that I was around. So I was the only child, but because I had so many cousins and family members, I wasn't really an only child. So by the time that I graduated high school, it was 2008. It was the start of the economic crisis. I was a first-generation college student. Again, that dream was always, I want to go to college. I want to do something great. But with my parents and working in casinos, and we aren't super exposed to all kinds of different positions or professional positions, it was hard for me to choose what I wanted to major in for college. And then also navigating how to apply for colleges and what really makes you stand out. So because I thought since I didn't have a 4.0 and I only had a 3.8, that I wasn't a stellar student and that I couldn't apply and be accepted to the Ivy Leagues, even though that was completely wrong, especially considering all the extracurriculars I was involved in, as well as the really difficult courses I was in, where I was doing calculus, vector calculus, and uh, large scale, very difficult classes where my weighted GPA was over a 5.0. So again, not knowing all the background aspects and how stellar, my resume and what I've built to be really was, I only applied to 3 schools. They were all public schools, and it was a school in Nevada, a school in Oregon, and a school in Washington. And it was the first time that I ever really ventured out of Nevada or California to go visit the schools, besides Mexico, where we visited family members in León, Guanajuato, Mexico. And so I didn't really travel, I didn't really go anywhere. So everything was super new and exciting. And with the economy crisis, it added another level of complexity of, am I going to be able to afford being able to go out of state? Should I stay in state and stay in the city that I was born and raised in, while earning a Millennium Scholarship that really reduces the cost of college? However, I was pretty stubborn, and I knew I could make it work. And I knew that if I worked during school and saved up a lot of money and didn't spend a lot of money, that I could go to my Hogwarts school, to my dream school, which at the time was Oregon State University. And because it had a really great program, I knew I wanted to make it work. And then on top of that, another realm of, kind of destiny or fate or just pure luck. My mom, she worked as a blackjack dealer and is now a blackjack dealer and a craps dealer. And at her blackjack table sat down a civil engineer, and she was able to engage him in conversation about his line of work and how he got to be a civil engineer and what exactly he did. And so she brought all that knowledge that she learned back home, where she knew that because I really loved math and science and I wanted to make a positive difference in the world and help people, that I could apply, my love for math and science into engineering and be able to design all these grand infrastructure that so many people use every day. So I Googled engineering and what it was all about and chose civil engineering because I saw roads, buildings, and bridges all the time every day and felt like I could help a lot of people. So I, again, being stubborn and ensuring my parents that we will be able to make this work and I will get as many scholarships as I can and work throughout school, I was able to start and complete my Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering at Oregon State University. I became an undergraduate research student by emailing professors that were doing items with sustainable engineering, something that I thought was really cool, and reached out to them to see if they needed any help, even if it was just sweeping and cleaning their lab. I was happy just to be around that atmosphere and learning. And they actively got me engaged in concrete mixture design and what have you. It was really exciting. I was also joined in some more clubs because I was so busy in high school. I felt like I wasn't as busy in college and I wanted to keep that momentum going. So I joined American Society of Civil Engineers as well as a concrete canoe competition. So this bottom picture here is the first really big presentation that I did in front of a lot of people on a technical matter, and it was terrifying. I remember when we won the regional competition and went to nationals, and then all of a sudden I was presenting in front of 200 plus people. I remember talking to my mom before the presentation and saying, how do I make it so my voice doesn't shake and so that I'm not so nervous and shy? And we kind of like did this bit of a prayer in terms of where, everything was going to be strong, but we forgot my knees. And so during the whole presentation, it was funny to be able to tell her afterwards that my voice didn't shake and my hands weren't shaking, but my knees were shaking the entire time. So again, coming from that, where public speaking was not my strong suit, and it was something that I had to work through and practice. So I did really well in my Bachelor of Science degree, and was able to network and make great relationships with that research group that I participated with, where I was able to get a fully funded Master of Science of Civil Engineering degree. So I built in some student loans within my bachelor's, but then was able to get a completely free and Master's of Science degree while getting paid to do graduate research, which really helped with, food and rent, which is perfect for a graduate student. So that's kind of more about my background, about how I went from, first generation student being really clueless about the college application process to earning a Master of Science degree in civil engineering, first in my family to go to college, to becoming an engineer. So now I work at Jacobs. We're about 50,000 people globally across the world, and we're an engineering consulting firm. So I am a water engineer based in our Los Angeles office. I get to work on multiple projects all around the Southern California area, where a lot of them have to do with our water resources. And Southern California is a pretty arid, dry climate. And so we, as a whole, Southern California gets about 85% of its water resources from outside of Southern California, from Northern California, and then from the Colorado River Aqueduct. Um, and so that's a really big percentage to be dependent on outside resources. So one of the goals that the city of Los Angeles has is to get to 100% water reuse by 2035. So that's actively treating wastewater to be super duper clean drinking water, and to replenish groundwater aquifers here in the city of Los Angeles, and then be able to pump out, treat to drinking water status, and then be able to use. So again, that's their very independent water cycle here in Los Angeles, where we're able to reduce imported water from outside areas. So that's a really exciting goal, and a lot of Southern California is also striving to achieve that, to become more independent and sustainable. It's also another way to say that is solving our future droughts here in Southern California through engineering. So these pictures here is a really cool job site I got to visit, where during the last drought, the water receded so low that it went past the lowest intake in Lake Mead. And that is one of the major reservoirs where we're able to receive water from for the city of Los Angeles. So because of that drought, the water level was so low that we could not take in water anymore, even in cases of emergencies. So this tunnel is actively going to the lowest point of Lake Mead in order to take water in cases of emergencies. Again, we want to reduce the imported water and want to maximize our independent water resources, but this was just one of those exciting projects that I got to go see in person, actively 530 feet below ground in that tunnel, which was amazing, as coming from a civil engineering background. So because I work at such a large company, not only do I have to network externally, but I also have to network internally. That way I'm able to meet more project managers, understand different projects that are happening around Jacobs, and then be able to get engaged with more of our expertise. So a couple of ways I'm doing that is continuing to be involved, like I was in high school, like I was in college, and now as a professional. So I'm actively involved in our Enlace Employee Network group, which helps to support our Latino talent. And so within that employee network group, I'm our global STEAM programs lead. So I'm trying to build this program of outreach and expertise that where we build a team globally. That way we can reach children all ages, as well as university students and obviously high school students, so that they can learn more about what we do at Jacobs and get really excited to the point where maybe one day they'll want to work with us actively as well. One of the programs I'm involved with externally is the American Society of Civil Engineers Los Angeles Younger Member Forum, where I am the president-elect. So that's a really great way for me to get to know other engineers, young professionals in other companies and agencies. And it's been a great way to get to know some more people in Los Angeles, since I've been here about 4 years now, three to 4 years, and been able to create a whole new network of really ambitious people that help drive me. So oftentimes I have to present on really technical subject matter to technical as well as non-technical audiences. So I want to be able to present my ideas to the public at large. That way they understand what it is that I do, as well as to other engineers in a technical realm, to get, you know, our ideas at Jacobs out to professionals at other companies and agencies. So again, I'm about 5 years out of my master's degree, so I'm very early on in my career. However, despite being only 5 years out of my career, I've been able to gain a lot of achievements. And I believe it's because of continuing to be involved. When you're able to meet more people, you're able to kind of share, you know, your goals and ambitions, and, you know, have that teamwork capability to really put together a plan of action in order to get things achieved. So by being involved, I've been, you know, asked to take on these roles or leadership roles, build my professional development skills, and then really do something worthwhile from that. And a big factor of that is something I'm passionate about, in that I didn't know what engineering was until I was choosing my major for college. And I want to make it so children like me from low income backgrounds, children of color and girls, are more so exposed to the world of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics from an early age. That way, you know, not only do they know what a doctor is or an architect is, but they know what an engineer is, and they know that they can do it too. If I can do it, they can do it. So that was a big push. And then doing the research behind it and understanding the lack of diversity there is in STEM, it also added that driving factor to, not only is this important for me, but this is important for the profession as a whole. Because when we are able to diversify our STEM workforce, we're going to be able to better serve our diverse public. And that's the whole goal of our work, is that we want to be able to serve the public at large and make sure that they're safe. And the best way to do that is to get different minds together to better understand the public that you're serving. So to share some statistics and the lack of diversity there is in architecture and engineering within the United States. In 2019, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics created surveys, and they were able to gather these details, where only 15.7% of architects and engineers employed in the United States are women. Less than 16% of us are women, okay? And then going further and looking at men and women and the different people of color demographics within that, only 13.3% of men and women employed as engineers and architects are Asian. Only 9.2% of those are Latino or Hispanic, and only 6.8% of those are Black or African American. So as a Latina engineer employed in the United States, I only represent 1% of engineers and architects. And that is just insane. So how do we change that? How do we continue to grow those numbers? And I really believe it's through outreach. not only to high school and university students, but starting from a younger age. That way kids are inspired and excited to become engineers, scientists, technologists, and mathematicians. So again, I was able to discover something I genuinely enjoy to do, working with children, making a positive impact, helping people. So I was able to find my why and really kind of dive deep. And then with that why, build a great network of other people who are also interested in and intrigued in creating that kind of change. And it's been able to build into this symbiotic relationship where I feed them and they feed me. So these pictures here are just, you know, some of those stepping stones and achievements that I've been able to create, starting from, you know, one of my very first events that I hosted in Los Angeles that bursted into an entire school being fully funded to go to the California Science Center in order to see this movie called Dream Big, all about engineering, in IMAX theaters for free. And this is a Title I school, which was largely low income, largely children of color and children like me. So it was just absolutely amazing that all the stars aligned in order to make this happen. And it was with me starting cold calling schools to see if they wanted to take advantage of these free tickets to this IMAX theater. And this school counselor who finally said yes out of the many schools that I called that didn't respond or didn't understand, to Nina Birch of Angeles Mesa Elementary School, who said yes. And not only did she say yes, but she asked if she could bring her whole school. So it was absolutely amazing partnership, and we still connect together where we're able to create school supply drives for that particular school, from help with the Jacobs Los Angeles office, which has just been so amazing. I've been nominated and awarded one of the top 10 young professional civil engineers within the American Society of Civil Engineers. So we're able to receive those awards in Washington, D.C., which was a great honor. And from that kind of transition to being featured, especially my alma mater, Oregon State University, that did this centerfold spread on, you know, how I got to be where I am and how I'm trying to give back and pay it forward. And then actively being involved with a bunch of other nonprofits, especially DIY Girls, which is a nonprofit that was founded by an electrical engineer from the Pacoima area who was a Latina. She was also a first-generation college student who actually went to MIT for her electrical engineering degree, got a master's in education from Harvard University, came back to Pacoima area to found this awesome nonprofit to teach other Latina girls all about the world of STEAM, and then is now currently a state assemblywoman for the state of California. And so that's her on the left, a state assemblywoman, Luz Rivas, and the executive director, Leticia Rodriguez of DIY Girls, and they're awarding me an Inspirational Leader Award for DIY Girls for the years that we were able to work together. So just kind of a compilation of, you know, my goals, putting them to action, and then all of these things that came out of it personally. So again, if you remember about my story from the concrete canoe presentation with the smaller group and being super nervous where my voice was shaking, how was it that I was able to gain, you know, these public speaking skills? And one of the ways to really get through it is through practice. It's like with any sport or any skill or talent, the more you do it, the more you'll become comfortable with it and the better you will get at it. So presenting to children has helped me immensely. It's made it so that I've become more comfortable presenting to groups, projecting my voice, and having or being able to present my ideas that way they're understood. And meanwhile, being able to retain my personality in order to keep people engaged with what it is that I'm talking about. I remember in grad school and presenting my research to a very technical conference audience. I made it so that I wasn't nervous, but at the same time, I felt like I was so robotic that it wasn't fun anymore to present on this work that I thought was so interesting. And so I had to really kind of think more about, okay, how can I make it so I can retain my personality, not be robotic, but be able to talk on a technical sense as well, and in a professional manner. So I've been able to practice this with children where, again, with children, you have to be a lot more upbeat than with adults. But with children, they are not going to be as polite, in a sense, about if your presentation is boring or not. They will actively yawn in your face, or they will start to fall asleep if you are losing them. So it was good practice in terms of, okay, how do I engage the audience to a level, and then also be able to explain these kind of difficult concepts in a way that they'll understand. So big items are to know your audience, and what kind of language to use, but also making sure that you keep your personality while still maintaining professionalism. You want, your demeanor, that way people respect you, but at the same time, you want people to want to listen to you, to want to hear what you're saying. So with all of that practice makes it so that game day, the larger and more technical audiences, you're more comfortable. You've been able to practice those skills. You've done all those free throw shots. That way, during game day, when people are heckling you, boom, you sink it, right? And again, that's coming from the basketball background in all the sports from high school and so on. But with all that practice, you'll be a lot less nervous. And by getting over those nerves, then you can kind of tackle into other areas like being energetic, being able to present your personality while you're speaking, keeping your audience engaged, and then really being able to get your message across and have it remembered. Not only like do they understand what you're saying, but they're going to think about it after you present. So again, a couple of pictures here of me presenting in front of a classroom, which I really enjoy, and then presenting in front of this large crowd of technical, as well as Telemundo journalists, city council members. Actually, Councilwoman Nuri Martinez was in the audience, and she's now the first Latina council president for the city of Los Angeles. So, again, coming from the classroom setting to be able to transfer those skills to a larger stakes presentation and nailing it out of the park. My husband was in the audience when I was receiving the Inspirational Leader Award from DIY Girls, and he said one of the most kind compliments I've ever received from him, where he said it was like watching a comedian where no one wants to follow that comedian because they were so good. So that just made me feel really wonderful. So presenting your best self while social distancing. Obviously, we're still in a pandemic. COVID-19 cases are rising, and we want to be able to be as safe as possible. But, in circumstances where people are still trying to network, how do we continue to meet people? And even before COVID-19, I felt like LinkedIn was a very powerful tool in order to do that. And it really helped me with growing my network and being able to share, the events and mission that I had in a great, profound way, where the executives at Jacobs now know me, they know my face, and they know my first name, which is also amazing considering how the few years I've worked at Jacobs, and also, just the traction that I've been able to create with an amazing team that I've been able to build. So LinkedIn, it's free. So that's, the best part of it. You don't have to pay for anything. There are different levels where, it can be some amount of money, but that base level, the free level, is very good and very valuable. And it's still what I have today. You have that access to people that you admire, and you're able to message them. You can message them for advice, how they got to be where they are today. And that's also something super powerful, and you're able to grow genuine organic relationships through those kinds of questions by using this tool. Again, Danette was able to reach out to me to see if I would be willing to volunteer for this. And we were able to grow a very awesome, genuine, and organic relationship through that, through LinkedIn. So one way to start is definitely to polish your profile to present your best self. You don't want to just throw a bunch of information onto LinkedIn without refining it. That way you can really get your message across and be able to present, and highlight yourself. And that's the goal. So some quick tips for LinkedIn. First off, very important, LinkedIn is not Facebook or Instagram. So again, you want to keep it professional. So one way is to update your profile, be able to highlight your professional abilities and achievements. And one awesome thing is that recruiters will be able to look at your profile and message you. I know many people who just based off of their LinkedIn profile, they were able to get a job, and not only a job, but the job of their dreams. And that was through a recruiter on LinkedIn itself. Because they were able to polish their profile and present some really keywords that were searchable by those recruiters. So it's extremely powerful in many different senses. Again, we don't want to have silly typos or other errors on our profile. So the more eyes and the more help that you can get from others, the better. You can have a friend and agree, okay, I will review your profile, you will review mine, and then we'll be able to check for anything that doesn't make sense, or that if there's a typo. That way you can improve on it, help each other, and get an outside point of view from someone you respect. And take advantage of completing all the different sections. That way you can really develop your holistic story and show different achievements from your experience, your education, licenses and certificates that you hold. Volunteer experience, you're able to share more about what you do outside of work. Skills, you can do many different types of skills where you're able to get endorsements on those skills from your network. And accomplishments, anything that you especially want to highlight about yourself that you worked really hard to do and you were able to be awarded. So lastly, with the posts, what you want to post on LinkedIn, some big things that people really enjoy seeing are any success stories, your successes, experiences, as well as events that you attended virtually, at least in these times, with some great photos. So you make sure to tag people you interacted with. It's also able to extend to their network in terms of your post being viewable. So the greater names that you're able to attach to that, it's also going to be able to permeate into their LinkedIn networks, even though you aren't directly connected to them. You can hashtag some keywords in order to kind of make them stand out. That way, when people are kind of skimming through your post, they're able to see some words pop out to them a lot more easily. So here you can see Women of Water Summit. They're like, oh, I wonder what that is. Oh, it looks like it's a conference. Oh, it looks like Monica was speaking at that conference. Oh, that's really cool. And then last but not least is to share your gratitude and thank others. I think it's so important to not only to focus on highlighting yourself, but highlighting everyone else involved. It's for me, it's a lot more interesting to read about, everybody else who built something than it is just about, that person. We don't want to come off as bragging or self-centered. It doesn't read well. It doesn't feel good to read that kind of stuff. So I think it's best when somebody's able to share more about what a group of people are doing and interested in. I think the more humble it can be, it's just going to be better. So polishing your profile, again, I was talking about all the different sections that you can kind of complete. So to kind of take into account some basic things, but really important things, for when you consider your LinkedIn profile. So your LinkedIn profile is an elaborated version of your resume. This is where you can expand upon, that one-page resume that you hand to recruiters or when you apply for jobs. By including your LinkedIn profile, then they're able to do a deeper dive as to what it is that you can bring to their company or other values that you have. So this is, again, your way to better highlight yourself. So when you have your headshot, you want to make sure that it's professional, identifiable, and recent. Even if it's a friend having your cell phone where you're on against a white background or a plain background, but making sure you're in professional clothing and groomed well, and just having a picture that's shoulders and up is going to be a lot better than a cropped photo of you at a party where you're in a group setting. That's going to read a lot better, even if you're not doing it with a fancy camera. So if you can get, somebody else to take a nice professional headshot of you, that's going to be great. With your background photo, you can jazz up your profile with something that you're interested in. Here, this is a photo that I took in Oregon of these lovely creek while walking over this log, and I think it just shows everything that I'm really interested in, which are water resources, sustainability, environmentalism, and it also, the color coordination goes great with the outfit that I'm wearing in my headshot. So it's just a nice little color scheme and story of what it is that I'm interested in. With your headline, your about you, it's basically your elevator pitch, your 3-sentence line as to what it is that you enjoy, what you want to keep on doing, and your interests, your professional interests. So again, keep it to 1 to 3 sentences about your goals, and it's basically your executive summary on your profile page. If they just read that, they'll get a better sense of everything else that's going to be shown on your page more in detail. So on to what to post. Again, this is more quality, not quantity. If you don't have anything that you particularly want to post, that's completely okay. And you can just engage by liking and commenting other people's content. But if you have something interesting that you do want to share on a professional level, these are the things that I've learned that people react to positively. And that includes interesting work that you've done. So if you've gone to a great work event or that promotes a great cause, goal, or initiative, you're able to also highlight your colleagues and peers through that. And again, people like seeing people enjoy themselves in a professional manner and having fun. So fun volunteering experiences or events. So did you lead an event? Share about it. People want to see what it is that you put on. And if you attended an event, also share about it. Give kudos to that person who organized it. Or if you enjoyed, what you learned, you can give that person credit. And again, that's also really interesting for other people to read on about something cool that you learned and interacted in. Awards. If you recently been recognized, share with your professional network on LinkedIn about it. People always love to celebrate others and say congratulations, especially if it's been something really cool. So if you recently graduated with a degree, share about that, especially during these times. People like to see happy news. Always include your best photo or video that you took from the event. If you're able to just snap something quick, remember to kind of gather that best 5 pictures or the one picture to kind of spotlight within that post. If it's just words, then people may kind of skip through it, but if there's a picture that's symbolic of what it is that you're posting about, then it'll gather more attention and better convey your experience. So again, the best posts are fun, interesting, and humble. And when people like and comment on it, it'll continue to stay on the main feed that is on LinkedIn. So even if it's 2 months later and somebody likes it, their network is going to see that they like that post. And again, quality over quantity. It's okay if you only post once in a year or none at all. You don't just want to post over and over again about memes, like inspiring pictures that is very generic, rather than something that's authentic and genuine to you. So big part is to be mindful of your activity. Your activity is public to everyone on LinkedIn. Even if that person doesn't have a LinkedIn and they're searching you, they're able to see kind of the top things that you've been participating in. So if you like something that isn't exactly professional, it's going to show up and it's going to represent you. So, so be mindful of that. Another thing with messaging, try to avoid directly messaging someone for something. Think about how you would interact with somebody in person. Would you just go up to somebody that you don't know at all and say, "Will you give me a job, please?" It probably wouldn't work out too well with that in-person interaction, right? Like you need to be able to kind of build some sort of relationship first before you can jump to that punchline of, are there any jobs available that you think I would be a good fit for? If they don't know you, then they won't know if you would be able to be a good fit for that. So treat this social networking or professional networking platform how you would interact with somebody in person. So again, try to make that genuine connection first. And an easy way to do that is to ask for advice. I've had somebody who just reached out, "Hey, I really admire the position that you're in and the work that you're doing. I wanted to learn more about how it is that you got to be that, or if you have any tips for me." I was much more responsive to that kind of message than I was to a message saying, "I recently graduated and I'm looking for internship or full-time positions," because I don't know that person and what they're like, versus, taking that message asking me for advice was a lot more easy. And that relationship was also able to expand from there. So again, avoid treating LinkedIn like Facebook or Instagram. We don't want to do selfies of ourselves with duck lips or anything like that. We want to keep it professional. Again, this is representative of what it is going to be like to work with us. That's what LinkedIn is about, is sharing yourself on a professional sense. So just be extra mindful of how you represent yourself on LinkedIn. Also, be mindful of what you comment on other people's content. We want to celebrate others. We want to be courteous and we want to be professional. So if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, especially on LinkedIn. So again, we want to represent what we would be like to work with. So we want to always put our best foot forward and be mindful that everybody else can see what it is that you're doing as well. You are on a public platform that's recorded. So one thing that I always like to end with any of the groups and students that I work with, and a big reminder for adults too, is to dream big. And again, this is a really cool movie that's streaming on Netflix. That's only about 42 minutes and kind of dives deeper into the world of engineering and what it's about. And a big thing that I've always had to remind myself is that dreams do not work unless you do. So you have to put in that work. And if you spend all day dreaming and you don't really, do anything about it, it's going to stay a dream. So we want to put in the work, that hard work, in order to make our dreams actually possible. So these are all just some cool pictures of, again, coming from that first generation college student background, from a low income family, from an immigrant family, to today where I'm able to afford to live in a huge city like Los Angeles. It's just very expensive. Where both myself and my husband have been able to achieve our dream jobs, which happen to both be in engineering. And being able to pay it forward by sharing our STEM dreams and opportunities, my career path with other students like me from low-income families that are also people of color, girls, in order to help diversify STEM further. So with that, I'll ask if there's any questions from Danette and the group, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you
have. Okay, can you hear me, Monica?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, one question is, when you said that you were on LinkedIn or you used LinkedIn to get recognized by the executives in your organization, can you give an example of how they recognized you, or what did you do?
Yeah, so a big thing was asking to be connected and gaining that one-on-one connection, and sharing about items that I've been able to host through American Society of Civil Engineers or through the Employee Network. So being able to post on that, and then being able to see the content and like it, and then reach out in an individual email later saying, oh, that's really cool what you did, or actively being engaged in other organizations and having that in-person interaction because of holding a leadership position in those networks. They're able to recognize my face and say, oh, I remember what you did. That was really cool, and being able to expand upon, those interactions. So by being able to post about those really cool events, you're able to share with a broader network and their network, right? When somebody likes it, then their network is able to see it, and they're able to see, again, your content and in your post. So you're able to build a network from that sense. So I really highly feel that because of LinkedIn, I've been able to share everything that I've been able to do in the company and outside of the company. And people have been able to recognize my face even more, as well as, the goals and missions that I have. So yeah, I know that was kind of like a broad example, but
that was good.
How it happened. Yeah.
Well, that's the real, right? We want the real. So I have another one. So hi, Monica, you are amazing. Just one question. Should we be very specific on looking for the right connections? Or should we choose the ones who are in the same field we are in?
I think it's great if you're starting out to build connections based off of people that you know in person, and then also people who are in the same fields as you. But I think it's also great to be able to add connections that are in other fields. Maybe they're related and it's still, helpful professionally as well. And then also, people that are completely outside of your profession, but that you could still learn from and enjoy seeing their kind of content because it's professional development related. I think that we can all learn from each other. But, starting out, it's really great to add people that you actually know and then continue from there. I know when I started on LinkedIn, I had less than 70 connections during grad school, and I had a recruiter tell me that I need to add some more connections. And it was really daunting because I didn't really know where to start, and I didn't really know how LinkedIn worked. And then so that was kind of the organic way that I started, was with people that I knew, and then people that were in the same profession, and slowly people outside of that profession that I felt like were worthwhile following and adding. So the connections have grown exponentially since then for me on LinkedIn, and it's been really eye-opening and engaging, everything that other people are involved in as well.
Thank you, Monica. And Christine says, thank you so much. So when you're out and you're working with the students, particularly the young girls, the young girls, Are there any questions that you see or comments that you consistently see coming from young girls who may be interested in STEAM or maybe hesitant? Is there a recurring theme that you see from females, young females?
Yes. So the younger they are, the more excited that they are and the bigger voice that they have. And
Ah,
sadly, when they get a little older, like middle and high school, they start to kind of lose that very energetic voice that they use so freely when they're younger. And I know why. It's because they don't want to look dumb, they don't want to look stupid, especially in front of their peers, or if they're trying to impress, the boys of the class that they may be attracted to. And it's unfortunate, but it's real. And so one really great thing is when I'm done presenting, or they're able to see me up front, doing something that's stereotypically super nerdy, and maybe they wouldn't associate me, my face, with something that's stereotypically nerdy. And so that's able to break one big barrier, is that no, you don't have to be, you don't have to dress frumpy and be an engineer. You can express yourself and be an engineer and enjoy all of these other things outside of math and science as well. So I think me breaking that stereotype is one big factor for them to open up and realize, like, oh, I want to be like her. And then some of the interesting questions have just been like, how have you been able to overcome um, uh, hardships? Or if you're having a really hard time in something, how do you get past that? And, when you think back to yourself when you're that age, sometimes the smallest things can be the biggest things in
mhm.
terms of helping you feel that you can't do something. I remember I was having the hardest time with long division when I was a little girl, and then finally when I solved that puzzle, then it felt like I could do anything. And so I try to give that example of, like, I didn't always know how to do everything perfectly the first time, and failure doesn't happen unless you give up. So every time that you keep trying, that's just like engineering. We don't get it right the first time. You think of us as incredible geniuses or whatever, but it's just a bunch of people trying to solve a problem and failing a whole bunch of times in order to finally get that success. So also giving that example of, you don't have to get it right the first time. None of us are perfect. Then it kind of helps build that confidence in them as well. So it's really enjoyable to see those girls that were once shy really get out of their shells with the hands-on activity and get really excited. So that's what I try to do, is after the presentation, we do a hands-on activity. That way they're able to kind of get out of that shell and really be able to show that energy and excitement.
Thank you. Okay, I have a couple more. Um, how do you develop a personal vision? Or maybe how did you develop yours?
He had American Society of Civil Engineers really helped me with this, because there's dedicated sessions to kind of writing out your vision statement. And one of the big things was like, well, what do you enjoy to do? And then I believe the next step was like, well, how can you do more of that while building yourself? Or what are some things that you want to build upon? What skills aren't you so great at that you want to increase? And then what do you find value in? What really feeds you beyond just, making money? But maybe with some people, money is that big bit that does make them happy. So everybody has these different things of happiness, right? So that next step is like, how can I get more of that makes me happy? So with me, with building that vision statement, was I like to do math and science. I love engineering. I want to build on my career, but I also want to give back in terms of community service. And a fun way to do that is with children. And then I was able to compile all of these things to say, I want to inspire more first-generation college students, more low-income students, more diverse kids to pursue a career in STEM. And this is how I'm going to do it. So by really sitting down and dedicating that, I was able to create that vision statement that also benefited myself, my company, by highlighting those aspects, as well as, you know, getting on clients and engaging them, and, you know, my professional development as a whole by improving the public speaking skills and, you know, networking, as well as putting on those events. So it was just kind of like a nice, holistic, perfect circle in terms of what feeds me and how I can feed, you know, my company and my profession, what have you.
I
So
love it.
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely hard, but once you got it, then you have that momentum going.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Joyce, and thank you for that answer, Monica. So this one is for me. Let me cut my camera on because I don't have any more, but of course, as soon as we jump off, I'll see a bunch that I didn't see on the Facebook stream as it's late. So as a first generation female Latina college graduate, then award-winning engineer who goes out into the community and says, I am going to give my hand in any way that I can to help the next generation come up, what would you say to these people, okay? To parents who are like your parents, right? Whether it's because they are Mexican or any marginalized community, right? From any marginalized group, their children, so you know, the youth, the Monica of today, and then the young professional or the professional, because within CDPD, Corona Daze Professional Development Group, we currently have parents in the group who are probably like your parents were, right? And they have young Monicas, right? Or Michaels. We don't have young girls or, you know, youngsters in the group, but we do have some young students in the group. And then we have some professionals in the group of all ages. What would you say to these three people? I know it'd be different things, but what would you say?
Yeah, I think the common bit that I would say is that anything new and challenging is scary, but anything new and challenging will grow you. Um, it's really easy to fall back on that comfort zone and feel protected in that way. But by knowing that when you expand on your academics and your education, just really good things are going to come out of that. A lot of times within my community, it was felt like you could really only get out of your bubble through sports by becoming an athlete or by becoming a musician. And one really easy way to get out of the bubble is through school, by getting a degree and by getting um, a degree for a profession that's a really stable, one that's needed everywhere. And for me, that was another really big spotlight with engineering, is that it didn't matter which city I was in, it was always going to be needed. And also looking at the finances behind it and how much an engineer earned right out of school also was a really big highlight in terms of building that stability for myself, because I really did love art and I loved design and I loved math and science. So it was really hard for me to choose what I wanted to do, but stability was a big portion of it, and it is a big portion of immigrant families in terms of being able to build you know, generational wealth.
Yes.
You want to be able to give back to your children, especially with everything that your parents have done for you. So one way to appease those parents that are afraid of being able to afford college is understanding that with that degree and the job that degree feeds, and that annual income that you will receive will help pay off the student loans, as well as build, you know, a platform for that future generation to then benefit off of the wealth that you've acquired and put together. So the big step is, you know, that capital cost and getting over that, how expensive, you know, the first step is, but then realizing how many years of 3 times the income that you have of your parents combined, which is basically how I feel, and how much that's going to help, you know, my children and being able to pursue even more opportunities than I felt like I had. So the first bit is scary, One way is to ask a lot of questions. I didn't ask enough questions because I was afraid, a bit ashamed, and felt like I needed to do everything myself. When if I could go back, I would tell myself, this isn't something to be ashamed of. You're doing amazing. And this is something to be really proud that you're trying to pursue. So the more questions you ask, the the better it will be for you and the less scary it'll be. And people will want to help you with these kinds of questions because, you know, they believe in you and they've supported you for a long time. So the more knowledge you can gain from others, it is a benefit. So don't try to do everything yourself. I mean, you have to put in the work yourself, but try to get, you know, the knowledge of others that you wouldn't be able to retain readily. So I guess that would encompass all three people is it's scary, but it's good for you to ask a lot of questions and then realize the big benefits of it. And a big way to do that is through academics to get out of that bubble or that restriction.
Oh, Monica, thank you. You know, every time I speak to you, I get emotional. So everyone listening, I get so emotional when I speak to Monica because I love her story. And I feel like one of the reasons we are here at CDPD is so that, as Monica said, like things like ask those questions so that you can ask us questions, that you have a place so that you can learn how to network and you can learn about someone who is a water engineer, even if you've already finished undergrad. You know, you learn about the fact that you could be a civil engineer. Maybe your little girl or your little boy could be a civil engineer. You know, so I love Monica's story, and I think one of the things that I love most is the fact that she gives so much of herself, because she is in a very good position where she doesn't have to turn around and look back, and she consistently turns around and looks back. And I'm just glad and thankful that she's here today. There is a lag in the questions that come up on the Facebook Live, so there may be one or two questions that I might have to email over to you, Monica. But thank you very much for joining us today. And CDPD crew, thank you for joining us, whether via the Zoom or in our group. And I really appreciate everyone. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Bye-bye, Monica. Thank you.